Hello out there. Wanted to do a run through of my setup. Somebody asked on one of my YouTube videos. Actually, a few people asked, and thought it would be kind of cool just to do a quick one. Hopefully, not long. Don't want to waste too much. Well, not waste, but use up a lot of time for everyone. I know we all have busy lives, but hopefully, I can get to the point on a lot of this stuff. Just talk about what my setup is, why I have it, what made me get to this point, how long I've been doing this, these kind of fun things, I guess, right? So if you see my channel, you kind of see a lot of the same systems I run. I like to run for drums the Perkins. So you'll see that a lot. And I've got a Perfourmer MK2, which is four voices that can be run individually. Basically, each strip is its own synthesizer in a sense, and they can all work together depending on how you configure them. I have some pedals I like to run. I've got these Von Gone pedals that I love, very organic sounding. They really sound analog, even though I think they're digital. This is a delay, a reverb. I have a Super 6 I'll use sometimes. I also have a bass line that I love from Erica Synths. Another one of those Erica Synth knock them out of the park devices. And I got a Zen delay over here, kind of a classic that I'll run in sometimes with this. And the heartbeat of everything is this little sequencer right here, which I'll zoom in a little bit. And this is the brains of the operation. I sometimes also run in MPC Live too. I've done that in one video so far for samples because I don't really have like a cool sample playback in the setup. And MPC Live 2's got, pads on it, and it's got a little touch screen you can use to XY and run effects and stuff. And I haven't really explored that super deep yet, but it's definitely a super powerful computer in a box, basically, if you don't want to be working on the computer a lot. So these are things I've just accumulated over many, many years. I've had maybe well over 10 years. I've bought and sold a lot of stuff, and there's intention really with this setup. It's taken a long time to get to a place where I had an idea of the type of equipment I wanted to use to produce. And one of the things was I didn't care for working in the box so much. I really never did from the start. I had a very difficult time writing music, and I went through just a lot of self-doubt, probably like a lot of people have. I work in IT. I spend a lot of time in front of the computer and coming home from work and going back on a screen to work. It offered just an unbelievable amount of flexibility to do whatever I wanted to do on it. But the fatigue and getting into sort of a repetitive loop syndrome, really wore on me for quite a long time. And I struggled. I made some music, but every time I did it, it was such a struggle. The most fun part was the creation, and trying to stitch together a track was very difficult, and being happy with it. And a lot of times I'd just be burnt out after the first 16 loops or whatever I was working on. I could go back and listen and be like, oh, that's kind of a good section, but I just never had a good, enjoyable time. And I'll tell you, I worked with some people that have made records for some pretty big ones out there, and they work in the box, and I spent time with them, and I got to see kind of where all this goes, what it takes to get there. And after that experience, I felt like I just wasn't going to do this art anymore, and I was out of it. I just kind of stopped. I had a lot of equipment that was laying around for about 3 or 4 years, and sold most of all that stuff. I even sold a Voyager, a Moog Voyager. Really hurts to bring that up, but yeah, this has been I saw some YouTube videos, and a few years ago. Music has always been on my mind. It's always been something that I just want to do, but every time I sit in front of a computer, I just didn't want to do it. And I saw a lot of people doing live stuff, and I thought, hey, that's kind of challenging. Doing this stuff is going to take a lot of work, but it looks challenging and it looks fun at the same time. And what I what I determined was I wanted to build a system set up like this, sell off some old stuff I had, and take a shot and see what happens. And I started to add pieces in and out, and some of the pieces I removed, and then I tried other things, and it didn't seem like a good idea at first because it's a lot of money you're going through, but you're reselling stuff, that kind of stuff, and through all of that, I was really able to find my gems, stuff where I'm just like, I can't wait to sit down and work on this, and that could be different for everyone. I don't want this video to come off as that these things here is what you need, and this is the best, right? There's nothing better than this. I don't want why. Just for me as an artist, for you as an artist, whoever's watching this, you got to do what it takes to get up for the game, I guess, right? If you love art and you want to do art, if that's sitting in front of a computer and working on it, and the flexibility and everything you have and the ease of just getting things done faster, that's great. That could be it for you. It wasn't for me. And again, I don't want to give the impression that somebody has to come out and spend a lot of money. You don't need this stuff, right? There's a million ways to do this. I mean, if you got an iPhone, you got enough, honestly, or an Android, right? Most people got phones, and if you got that, you can start right there and be done with it. But for artistic expression, this was something that I was excited to have this tactile ability to work on and shape music and do it live, and that's why I went with this format with bigger knobs, open spaces, basically, right? And I found it so fun to sit down and write and actually finish a track. Yeah, it's not going to compare to somebody on a computer that can go back and perfect everything, but the imperfection is something that I love. I've never been that way. I've always been a perfectionist, and that was probably a lot of my problem back in the day. But this setup has its limitations compared to the computer I was working with, right? Or just computers in general, where I've got everything in my fingertips and the endless amount of throwing compressors and things. I just got caught up in it. I didn't know how to really game myself out of it. There's probably a way to do it, but I never figured it out. And I just did just too much on it. And I still use it. I love it. I love having it. But the application for the computer is recording now, and it's handling effects. And it's handling effects that, I couldn't afford in real life. I'm not rich. I will tell you, this setup I have here is 10 years of saving and working and selling other stuff. I don't want to be in debt. I don't live that way. So this is stuff that's just taken many, many years to get here to this point. So this isn't a huge channel where you're going to see a new hot thing every week. It's really just taking what I've got, the limitations that I've got, and enjoying and exploring and squeezing the most I can out of it, exploring different genres when I get kind of tired in the same rut of the same genre. Yeah, this is it's a really awesome setup. This is the brains, basically. We'll get into that. And this sequencer has basically 4 different types of sequencers that are on it. So there's 4 different sequencers that are on this. You have this matrix that's here, and the sequencers, each one of these, basically, if you think of it as its own kind of machine, has several different types of sequencers you can run in it, different types, from a mono to a poly type to a chord, multi-track, stochastic, really just a lot of different ways you can go on that one. So in general, the basics is you'd select one of these, set up a MIDI channel, route it to one of your machines. And then you decide from the menu, okay, we're going to drive a machine. How are we going to drive it? Do I'm sending mono notes to it? Do I want to send chords to it? Those sorts of things. So it has a nice selection of these options that are there. And some of these, beyond your normal mono and poly, they have a chord mode, which you can program your chords any way that you want. It's got a whole menu that's in there. If you don't know anything about music theory, this thing is amazing. You can start off sending, the notes to a poly synth like the Super 6 that I have here, getting some awesome chord progressions together. And then you can go through to another machine, and maybe I want to send something to the performer, and I can select like poly or mono that's on it, and I can change the scale that's on that. And you can go from, say, if you had a chord running on the first track, you can go to what's called harmon. What that means is that everything that you program, all the notes that you're programming in there, are notes that are going to match what the chord has inside of its scale. So you work within the scale of the chord and it just spits magic out. It's fantastic. There's a stochastic mode that's on here as well that I use almost every video, which kind of is a generative thing that stays also within a scale that you decide to set it to. So if you want minor, major, whatever, and it just runs, and you can on the fly change if you wanted to kind of hit a high note, a low note. It's very deep. I won't go into it, but the creativity that this affords me, honestly, for the price, for I think it was 600, somewhere between $600 and $700, is fantastic. It's battery powered, so I don't have to have it plugged in all the time. The battery lasts a super long time. It's such an awesome sequencer. I use this over the MPC Live. I mean, MPC Live is great for banging out beats and doing a lot of sort of in the box type of work, right? It's a sampler. It does all that stuff, and it's a fantastic sequencer. But in the step world, this thing is awesome. And you're not really limited just 4 tracks. It looks like it's like, oh, I'm going to send an instrument here, 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 but you could choose what's called multi mode, and this works a lot like a electron sequencer, meaning that you will have each row have its own MIDI channel. So just within the one sequencer, you can have all these set up as their own MIDI channel. So each one of these can be its own instrument. And then like an electron sequencer, you hold the button down and then you change the note to what you want. And of course, you can set it up to scale. And the scale hooks in with chord mode if you want to stay in harmony, those sorts of things, right? You can do all that. It's just amazing. Really, I'm so happy with this purchase. I wasn't sure 100% how I was going to get along with it. It was sort of like try it, buy it, sell it if you don't like it. And I've landed here, and I've been here for about maybe 6 months on this. And I haven't been looking around at other sequences. Maybe there's something better out there. This is working for me. This is, there are sub menus that are in here. It's not too difficult to learn the basics, but it does get a little weird trying to get your head wrapped around it. Not as bad as, say, an Octatrack or anything like that, but yes, would I love to see a sequencer the size of something like one of my other giant devices? Yeah, where the buttons are just right there and I can get to them faster and I don't have to hold this to get to that or whatever, and get some of that live feel out of it. Yeah, this thing is the brains. It's just almost like an endless amount of instruments, more than I could ever want to connect to it. It's just covered it all, and just being able to work with it and get really interesting stuff out of it fast, where I'm not banging my head against the wall, is just awesome. I mean, being able to work within the scales and having one track match the scales in another track, and the chord mode is just, it really is just for the chord mode alone. I think it's worth the price. So this is the OXI one. This was on a Kickstarter a long time ago. It's available. I'm not being promoted by any of this stuff, honestly. This is just a guy that wants to share stuff on YouTube. Honestly, this is not a money making thing for me right now. I don't know if it'll ever will be, but it's more of an intention of, hey, I want to make music first for this channel, and sharing it with the community. And if people ask things, like somebody asked for this, hey, why not? Let's talk a little bit about it. Maybe I can go into more detail later on a lot of this other stuff. But yeah, this was the latest purchase. This came out pretty recently, which is the Perkins. And what I like to do with the Perkins is use leverage the sends that they have in the back of each one of these voices. Leveraging the sends lets me send out to the computer on a separate channel for an FX that I'll set up. So I'll set up an FX track and route that into the PC. And then what happens is the FX send knob on each one of these voices, I'll be able to turn up that effect live. And this has been a huge, if you've seen my other video, I mean, this is a really huge groundbreaking thing for me, because I feel like the delay that's built in, the stuff that's kind of built in is kind of limited in a sense, not super limited. You can make music without that stuff on it. But I feel like you'll definitely squeeze yourself into a box, right? You know, when you've got all these effects that you can chain, it can really change the sound. It can really take a different mood completely. That's kind of what's going on. I mean, the raw sounds are fantastic that's on here. There's so many different ways to tweak them. There's enough algorithms and modes within each algorithm to give you just almost an endless possibility of tweaking. But adding the sends and sending, adding this feature to be able to really take this and get the space you need with whatever reverb you want to use, whatever delay you want to use, whatever other worldly effects you want to put in there, and just on the fly hit these things and go and build up energy, reduce the energy by the effects that you have on there. Can really take four voices and make it sound like there's way more stuff that's going on there, right? When you start adding really cool delays, short delays on some stuff, it can really expand it. So you might hear my videos, buy one of these things, plug it in, and just go out the main and be like, man, this doesn't sound like what that guy's doing. Well, that's what I'm doing, guys. I'm leveraging this. I mean, that's what they put in there. Obviously, I think that was the intention, to really expand it, to give us, the users, the chance to really expand it. And honestly, you'd say, well, gosh, you're going to have a lot of ins and outs. That can be pretty expensive. Well, I only spent $250 for the audio device that I'm using, which is a Behringer Euphoria 1820, I think it is. It's hiding under this nice mess of wire, so you can see that I'm pretty organized. But yeah, I mean, all the channels are in there. I've had this patch bay for quite a while, and I decided to bring it back just to make it easier to get in and out. So this is all patched up into here, so I don't have to go and take one of these cables and find the back end. I can just go straight in the front. So yeah, the 1820 is amazing. I used to have some Apogee stuff. I don't want to call out anybody, unfortunately. Sorry, Apogee, but I had I think it was a Quattro quartet. It was a quartet, excuse me. It was quartet, and it sounded amazing. And when I had that and I bought this, I A/B them. I couldn't hear the difference. I know some people can, but for me, I couldn't, and that's what mattered at the end of the day. So I said, well, let's sell it, and I sold it for quite a bit, and bought that at the fraction. Bought this Behringer Audio 1820 at fraction of that sale, and was able to roll it into other stuff. And yeah, having 18 or 8 ins, 8 outs for the price. I don't know if it's 250 anymore. I might have got it on sale. You might be more around 300 now. It sounds good. So that's the audio device going into the computer. I run Bitwig as my main DAW. That's where I set up my audio tracks, and I'll record these YouTube videos, and I'll hit record there, and I'll turn on my iPhone and record, and then sync them up, and that's it. So yeah, Perkins, easy to work with. The limitations of it are awesome. It flips the script for me, from like being on something where I have an unlimited amount of stuff where I get paralyzed, to, okay, well, hey, buddy, now you can't do all that stuff. How are you going to figure that out on here? And with all the nice little features they have of randomizing things and timing things, you find your way. You find your way through to get creative with it. And that's, I think, the main thing I want to tell anybody that's looking for one of these things is that I will be honest, I had Electron boxes. I love them. I think it's a great community. Those things are incredible. You want something that's going to just give you endless possibilities. They kind of are. They're so good. So I do recommend those. But if you're kind of struggling, you want to limit yourself, this does a good job of what they mean by that. I would say is that, hey, yeah, you're kind of in a box. Can you think out of the box? We're going to give you some tools and tips to figure that out, but you have to do that. And it's not a laborious process. You're not like, oh man, this is going to take forever. I'm going to have to go online. No, you figure it out. You go through and you play with this stuff within seconds, and you're going, oh, that's what that does. This is what that does. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the Electron stuff, but I did sell to fund this. I would probably rather have kept it, but a lot of the stuff I had were fantastic. They're going to be great for other people, but I'm not using them. I'm not using them. If I'm too far in the screen, I'm doing stuff, I kind of feel like I'm losing out on the live intention that I have of doing this stuff. So maybe someday I'll come back around to it, but I don't want to, I hope I didn't offend anybody on the Electron stuff. I do think they're fantastic. I've had them for probably 15 years. I've been a huge fan and I still am a huge fan, but I've moved on to this. I'm not regretting it at all right now, really, in terms of usage and what I'm doing. I have a busy day. So these kind of things that just let me get in and go fast are just working for my lifestyle right now, really working for my lifestyle, and the openness and just getting to the point and getting stuff out is, yeah, it's pretty awesome. So this was something that was on my hit list for a long time and I couldn't get one. And every time I would put one on reserve and it would show up every 3 to 6 months, something else would be going on and the money would be tied up somewhere else. And I couldn't get there. But eventually things worked out where I was able to get and acquire one of these things. And I'm completely blown away. I've done a lot of programming for Access Virus and things like that. So I'm a deep synth programmer, and lately I just haven't been as much into the deep side of things, and thought, well, what the heck? Let's get something a little bit more simpler, and see how it goes. See if I get bored. See if I hit the ceiling on some of this stuff. Because what this is a 4-voice synthesizer, and each one of these is its own voice, has its own outs, has its own volume pans. I mean, own mixer section, everything. And you can mix and match these up however you want. So if you want to play chords on it, you can get all the voices to work together as a chord. I find it interesting to kind of work voice to voice. So I might use my sequencer and send notes to each one of these. And I find that satisfying and interactive, the way that they can talk and have a conversation with each other. So the sound of this was what really blew me away. It really sounds very organic. I've heard a lot of synths in my time, and this is what people kind of talk about the magic with it. It may not be for everyone, but there's certainly this organic-y kind of 80s kind of feeling about it. And I can't say that it's any kind of drift from the oscillators or anything. It's hard to really pinpoint what it is, but it just it gives you such this emotional feeling as you work with it. And I think that's where people really fall in love with this thing, is that they get an emotional connection to the way it sings back with its oscillators. It is a easy thing for a beginner to pick up. I wouldn't say easy for a beginner, but compared to a lot of the other stuff, right? If you tell a beginner, look, if you figure out this part, you'll figure out the rest of it. Right? If you figure out just one strip, you'll get the rest of it. And there's just not a whole lot to get lost in here. There really isn't. So super simple, but just emotes so much. And right out of the box, when I started playing with it and started getting the sequence going, I was like, yeah, this is fantastic. And it just kept getting better and better. And it got super awesome when I first purchased this Voncon Ultra Shear, which is a reverb, also has a vibrato that's on there, and you can come up with that more detuned sound if you want, right? Kind of make a synth sound older, a little more 80s or whatever. That thing is incredible with the Vermona. I mean, you think the Vermona had enough of it, but honestly, adding even a little bit more just adds even more emotion to it and just takes it to a whole nother level for me. And the reverb is super simple. There's not a whole lot you can do in terms of tweaking little bits in here, but what it does is sort of like push the button, turn it, presto, that's what this is. And for me, it sounds that good. I love it. I don't know how they just nailed it. If I want a darker reverb, I can change that, can be more bright, mix, decay, real simple. Again, not a whole lot of thinking, sitting down, making music, getting kind of straight to it and minimizing the stuff and just putting the things in that just do the job, right? And it's not like, well, I need to do this thing today and it's going to take me about 4 hours to set it up, kind of thing. And that's excessive, but I think you know what I mean, where you kind of get taken out of the artistic uh, feeling. And so then the other one I added was the polyphrase, which is a delay, and it has a lot of features I won't go over here, but this also has the ability to warp its delay and give it kind of that off pitchness so if you didn't have one of these or didn't want to run the reverb, but you want to get kind of an older sounding delay or dubby type stuff, this really does so much. It's so incredible, and you can sync it to your MIDI and MIDI clock, whatever, and you can see the MIDI input that's there, and you can send MIDI to each one of the controls that are on there, which I haven't even gotten that far. But these two together, I love the look of them. They're super simple. Again, there's not a whole lot of stuff that's there, but there's enough for me. So I'm going to hold the camera here. This is the Super 6. I didn't have a poly uh, synth, so I looked around and like the Dave Smith stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and I saw this and didn't really want the key version. And when it went with the desktop version, I got more interested in it, and I went with it. And it's kind of cool. It takes on that old '80s kind of rolling kind of look, the simplicity of all the knobs and everything. Sliders that are on here are super awesome, and it's what it's doing is it's splitting the LFOs and the oscillators to give you this really cool stereo sound. It makes it very unique that it can do that, and there's a lot of depth that's hiding underneath the panel, which is kind of a bummer, but it's also awesome at the same time, because it's not like, hey, what you see is what you get. What you see is a lot already. What you see, you can do quite a bit with. But when you want to push and go another, oh, I wish I had this feature. That wish feature is keeps being added to this at the cost of having to hold the button and hit something else. And there's no indicator on there to tell you, hey, yeah, just do this and do that, because these features were thought of after they went and printed and put these things out. So you do have to have a manual if you want to go there, but there's plenty here to do all the normal and super deep stuff. You can load your own waves that are in there, wave tables, and utilize that. I know I'm not doing the justice of all the super technical details that's in here, but the build quality is incredible. All these buttons, they're very much, I think they're like the same switches that the Perkins is using over there. And they're fun to work with, saving stuff super easy. This is a easy synth to start using and has a lot of depth beyond what the basic front panel shows you and what you can get out of it. And the stereo is just really cool idea, I think, on it. It's digital, it's non-analog. But yeah, so this is my studio. Maybe I'll go in a little bit more detail on some of this stuff. I do have a modular that's there that I might be using. I've got a few more devices here, an OXI and a Strega, and this little guy here, which is the microcosm. It's pretty cool. So anyways, thanks everybody for watching. Sorry for the long one. Hopefully it wasn't too long and you stuck around, and now you know a little bit about what I'm doing here, how I'm sequencing things, and yeah, thanks again, everybody. Take care.